Let's try a little thought experiment, shall we? For just a moment, we're going to switch off one of the fundamental forces of the entire universe. Now, I know it sounds like something out of a sci-fi movie, but stick with me, because this exercise reveals a pretty terrifying truth about just how fragile our reality is.
So here's the question. What would actually happen if that invisible force that's holding our entire world together just blinked out of existence? Not forever, not even for a full minute, just for 5 seconds. Now, if you're picturing a kind of peaceful, slow motion, floaty scene, well, you couldn't be more wrong. The reality is way, way more terrifying.
Yeah, this is no fun little zero-G flight. The consequences are immediate and they are absolute. In less time than it takes you to even process what's happening, the basic conditions for life on Earth would be completely and totally erased.
Okay, so before we can really get our heads around what happens when gravity disappears, we first have to appreciate what it's doing for us right now, this very second. Think of it as the silent, invisible anchor that's holding our whole world in place.
At its heart, gravity is actually pretty simple. It's just the attraction between any two things that have mass. But that simple little force is the most important construction worker in the entire cosmos. It's the invisible glue holding planets and stars, and even whole galaxies together.
You know, it's funny, we totally take its work for granted every single day. Gravity isn't just the thing that keeps our feet on the floor. It's what locks our planet into a perfect stable orbit around the sun. It's what holds our massive oceans down. It even clings to the very air we breathe, keeping our atmosphere from just, poof, drifting off into space.
All right, here we go. Time for the main event. Let's flip that imaginary switch. Gravity is gone. Now, the very first second isn't about planets colliding. It's intensely personal. It starts inside your own body.
Instantly, your brain is just thrown into absolute confusion. Your inner ear, which relies completely on gravity to give you a sense of balance, just goes haywire. Suddenly, there is no up, there is no down. Your internal organs, now totally weightless, start to shift around. Your body is a machine that was built for gravity. Without it, it has no idea what to do. 1,600 kilometers per hour. That's about 1,000 miles per hour. What on earth is that?
Believe it or not, that's the speed you are moving right now just by standing on the Earth as it spins. The only reason you aren't aware of this incredible speed is that gravity is anchoring you and the atmosphere and everything else to the planet's surface. We're all moving together as one. So, what happens when you cut that anchor? Things get violent, and they get violent fast.
You wouldn't just gently float up. Oh no, you would be launched sideways at an incredible speed, like a rock fired from a sling. The planet would keep spinning beneath you, but you would fly off in a straight line into the sky. In just those 5 seconds, you'd travel almost 1.5 miles, all while cars and trees and entire buildings are ripped from their foundations and flung into the chaos right alongside you.
And as all of this is happening to you, the catastrophe is scaling up big time. We're moving from personal chaos to planetary chaos because the Earth itself is starting to completely disintegrate. The chain reaction is just instantaneous. Our atmosphere immediately begins to expand and just bleed out into the void of space. The oceans detach from the seafloor, forming these colossal, terrifying spheres of floating water. The moon, it stops orbiting and just starts drifting away in a straight line. And maybe most terrifying of all, the immense pressure holding the Earth's crust and core together is just gone.
So what happens to the planet itself? Well, physicists have a couple of horrifying ideas. In one scenario, the crust in the mantle, no longer held in place, would just shear off from the spinning core, turning the planet into this grinding vortex of rock and magma. In the other scenario, the sudden release of all that pressure from the core would cause the entire planet to just explode. So yeah, either way, it's the end of the world. But remember, our experiment only lasts for 5 seconds. So what happens when we flip the switch back on? You might think this is a moment of relief. It's not. This is when the second, and arguably much worse, catastrophe begins. Here is the fundamental, terrifying problem. In those 5 seconds of chaos, everything has moved. You're now 1.5 miles from where you started. Entire buildings are now just clouds of debris kilometers away. The oceans are floating high up in the atmosphere. Gravity's return doesn't put anything back. It just pulls everything straight down from wherever it happens to be. All of a sudden, every single thing that was flung into the air is now in free fall. But it's not falling into an empty space. It's falling onto and into and through everything else. The world becomes a demolition derby on a planetary scale. It's no longer about predictable physics. It's just pure, random, violent chance.
As the Earth's crust slams back down towards the core, it would trigger earthquakes bigger than anything ever recorded. Those massive floating spheres of ocean water would come crashing down, creating tsunamis you can't even imagine. Volcanoes would erupt all over the globe. The world that would emerge from this 5-second blank would be a cold, dark, and utterly shattered ruin.
So, wow. What's the takeaway from all this horror? It's not just a fun physics problem to think about. It's actually a pretty profound lesson about the nature of our existence itself. We tend to think of our world as solid, stable, permanent. But this little experiment shows us that's just not true. Our reality is this delicate, intricate dance, balanced on a knife's edge by these fundamental forces like gravity, invisible laws that we live by every single second but barely even comprehend.
And that leaves us with one final kind of lingering question. A question that really gets to the heart of this cosmic fragility. Seriously, think about it. Gravity, the flow of time, the strong and weak nuclear forces, all of these invisible rules are constantly working to hold you and the very atoms that make you up together. What happens if one of them just blinks, even for an instant? Well, as we've just seen, reality breaks. And it's a pretty humbling reminder that our entire existence depends on the consistency of cosmic laws we're only just beginning to understand.